Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and welcome to Jones and Company. On this program, we examine national and international issues. And this afternoon on this program, we are going to be talking about money matters, economic issues. The world is still in a recession. The government of the Bahamas is still in deficit spending. And of course, we are impacted by the recession in the United States and the G20 policies of the world. Our guest on this program today is Dr. Richard Ebeling, who is a professor of economics at Northwood University. Previously, he was president of the Foundation for Economic Freedom and most recently taught at Hillsdale College and Trinity College. He received his PhD in economics from Middlesex University in London, England. Dr. Ebeling is a leading member of the Austrian School of Economics, and he writes and lectures widely around the world and has written hundreds of articles, received awards, and written several books. His most recent book, called Political Economy, Public Policy, and Monetary Economics. Dr. Ebeling, welcome to our program.
It's a pleasure to be with you here today.
Godfrey Eneas is here as usual, and Godfrey has many questions for you, sir, because I believe that you addressed a group on the topic from socialism to free markets.
Yes, that was last night.
The world is still in recession.
Correct.
When do you think we'll be out of this recession?
That depends upon what governments do, and by governments doing, I mean more of the harm that they do rather than the good policies they do. This has without a doubt been a very serious and perhaps one of the most severe recessions that not just the United States or Europe, but the world has experienced since the end of the Second World War, that is over 60 years ago. But I believe that the recovery process need not have been as long, nor need this recession have been quite as severe as it's turning out to be, if not for a variety of misguided government policies. In other words, the government has made the healing process a bit worse than it had to be.
What are some of these misguided policies that you can tell us about?
Well, for example, both the United States and the European Union countries have instituted huge, what they call stimulus packages to try to bolster employment or support businesses that have been shaky. But the fact is these stimulus practices are ending out to be counterproductive. Why do I say counterproductive? Well, any government, whether it's the U.S. government or the EU governments, they have no money to spend that they don't either first tax away from the citizenry or borrow from the financial markets. For every dollar, for example, that the United States government spends on a stimulus public works project is $1 less that the taxpayer has. So it has no net effect. If the government borrows the dollar, it's $1 less in the financial system, in the banking system, for a private borrower to borrow, to start a business, expand a business, even just an ordinary citizen to have the money to buy a home or to send their child to college, for example. And therefore there's no net effect. But what it does do is it takes that money out of the hands of private individuals who otherwise could have invested it to expand a business, to invest in machinery, equipment, technology, to create a long-term sustainable basis for recovery in the economy. The government just squanders it. Fine, you hire someone with these taxed or borrowed dollars, they repair a highway, they put a new tarred roof on a school building, fair enough, but then it's gone. It's not an industry or factory that is making a marketable product that can provide sustainable employment in the years ahead.
Godfrey?
So, Dr. Ebeling, what would have been the alternative?
The government should have lowered taxes. It should have actually cut its own spending so as to put less pressure on the financial markets from its borrowing. And it should have accepted the fact that the bubbles that burst, the housing bubbles, the investment bubbles, the consumer debt bubbles, all have required real adjustments. If you take out too much credit borrowing, you have to tighten your belt. If you've taken on a house that you can't afford, you may have to cut your expenditures somewhere else or perhaps even put your house up for sale. And the ballooned housing prices have to adjust downwards to realistic levels. And the government should have just allowed, if you will, the cards to fall there where they may, and the economy to have had a normal adjustment, which is the pattern that it has followed in many such previous recessions.
Now, I know you're a visitor here, and you may not be as cognizant of the economics of our economy. Mm-hmm. But our government chose to use public works as a means to stimulate employment as a result of the drop-off in the tourism sector when thousands of people became unemployed. And how do you see that kind of strategy where monies are borrowed to carry out public works?
Well, the difficulty here is that there's two elements. First of all, if the government has borrowed this money, and I know the Bahamian government has for many years been running annual budget deficits, that money has to come from somewhere, which means that the government is borrowing it. That means Bahamians have less money to borrow themselves. Bahamians have less money to invest, expand a business, improve their own lives, because the government is running a public works project. The money doesn't fall from heaven. Resources don't appear like rain from the sky. The fact is, if the government spends it, private individuals don't have available to spend. And the net effect is not positive. It would have been far better. Admittedly, a small country like this is heavily dependent upon the tourist trade. If people are having bad times in other places, they don't plan holidays. Then the focus should have been, well, what can the people themselves do to sort of fill the gap? And that could have been done by deregulating some government controls that make it difficult to start or expand businesses here at home. It could have been done by cutting taxes and cutting government expenditures to free the resources that the country has available to be creatively and innovatively applied by the people in the society itself, rather than relying upon the brainstorms of bureaucrats who may or may not understand really what people want and how to deliver it.
But let's go back before we get, let's go back to the U.S. economy.
Sure.
If the Obama administration had not stimulated the economy as it did and opened and placed the amount of money in the system that it did, wouldn't we be in a depression now?
No, I'm not persuaded so. In fact, unemployment has been rising during these first months, first year almost of the Obama administration. Unemployment when he came into office was much lower. Now it's over 10% of the measured workforce. The fact is that it has created a huge amount of uncertainty and instability. The U.S. government is borrowing over $1 trillion to cover its deficit spending, and has created a great degree of uncertainty and hesitancy on private sector recovery, because they're wondering what taxes will have to be raised to pay back all this government money. Upon whom is the tax burden going to fall? And in fact, doing this has in fact created more uncertainty and instability in the economy than otherwise would have had to have been the case.
But GDP improved by 3.5%.
Yes, but
and so it means that the economy is rebounding. Certainly, you did not have a worsening situation. The situation is getting better.
Well, the thing is that is it Obama's policies that have brought about this rebound in GDP? I'm not persuaded that. The fact is that we've had recessions before, the booms and busts of a bubble that bursts before in our economies, like other countries. And the fact is that after a time of sort of shedding a degree of unemployment, remanaging how you organize your business and reining in some excess expenses, the economy starts recovering. This recovery would have started anyway. I'm just
You really think so?
Yes, of course. I mean, this is not the first recession since 1945. The United States itself has had at least